From what I've seen from pre-seed, a lot of these pre-seed rounds can also be institutions and groups as well because what you're putting out there is strong. And sometimes they'll come in what's called a convertible note. So what they're doing is they're giving you this funding to kind of get your idea started because your idea is a unicorn idea and you have a solid team behind you. You may not have your MVP ready, so we're going to go ahead and give you funding. But they may say, let's do it as a convertible note, which means that it's almost like a loan. I'm going to give you this capital today, but what will happen is on this date, it now converts to be equity. So let's say your next round, you're giving out shares for $100 a share. They're only having to pay $80 a share because they were there pre-seed and they got it early on.
Hey, what's up, fam? It's Ilenray, host Africans in Tech, where we're building bridges and shaping futures in tech. On our episode today, we got Mr. Sean. He's going to be talking about if you are building an app and you wanted to take it from just the idea to actually being an app that's either being invested in and then eventually goes IPO public. This is the episode for you. So for any entrepreneurs out there who have built apps or thought about building apps, this is the episode you would definitely want to tune into. So Sean, off to you, bro.
So right now, I advise a lot of startups across Africa, and this is my philosophy. It doesn't mean it's perfectly right. I think everyone can approach it differently, but I believe if you want to be able to go from idea to your seed round, this is the best way to go about it. So the first thing you always are going to have is that idea. That early idea, if it's big enough and it has enough wide reach, you're automatically going to get some attention, right? But most people have an idea, but they do nothing with it. They don't take that next step. So the next thing you want to think about is, okay, you have your idea, but where's that team? So you really want to have two different co-founders. You always want to have at least two co-founders. Reason being is that you need two different types of execution and personality types. So your first co-founder, let's call it your CEO. And your other one will be your CTO. Your CEO's job is to sell. They're really there to sell your business and not necessarily to sell to make revenue. They're selling to drive investment. They're communicating the vision, the mission, and they help you hire the best talent because they're inspiring and motivational. Your CTO, which is typically going to be your technical co-founder, their job is to actually create, build, and own the code. Always say, own the code. And the reason why is because investors are going to want to be able to see that if anything goes wrong down the line, that you understand where it went wrong, how to rewire it. And also, when you outsource, sometimes the person you outsource to may take advantage of that and may not tell you certain things or may hold on to certain things or may even steal your idea. So you just want to make sure you own that as much as possible. The other thing, so after you have your co-founders, you still want to ultimately think about the team you're creating. What does that team look like? Because investors are always going to invest in your team. They're going to want to know, who do you have? What type of talent? Where did they work at before? What have they created and built? So great. You have your team. That's great. From there, there's a couple different routes you can go. But the one thing that I recommend first is that I want to see you have an MVP. So your MVP, that stands for your minimum viable product. That just means that you created something that can be easily shown or displayed and have a small customer base on. It doesn't have to be complete, but the advantage is that you have a real world version of something that you're trying to create so people can see that it's functional. There's certain tools out there that you can go online that can help you create one. You can even leverage AI, but try to be able to get that. Even if it's not fully functional, what piece of your product can you take and make it in a simple way that's easy to use? What I always recommend from here, and this is why I say you can go in multiple directions, is that beside your MVP, I really want you to have an advisor. Oops, don't worry about that. All right. This is where the game changes. Too many times, entrepreneurs, you're worried about, how do I raise capital? How do I raise capital? Don't worry about that. I want you to get an advisor, and I want you to have two types of advisors. I want you to have one that is an expert at business This is a person who's been a part of a tech company before, a tech startup, or understands how to be able to scale a business and just strategically what you can do differently. That's your strategic advisor. Then you also want to have your industry expert. So this is the person that if you're in a position where I'm targeting a certain industry, well, let's say it's restaurants, I want to find somebody who has a notable name, notable experience in the space, so that when I now go to those individuals that are going to be my customer base, they're able to help me. So from there, you have these two things together. You're going to start working on your pitch deck. You're going to have a bunch of items in there. Of course, you're going to have information about you, your team, etc. But I want you to focus on these 4 key things. First off, your TAM. Your TAM is your total addressable market. This is looking at if you were to scale 100%, which you know you're not going to do, but what does the full market look like out there? You know, how big is that industry? If you're talking about car sales industry, how many people are buying cars so that you know ultimately this is $100 billion industry, this is $1 trillion industry, because that allows us to know what you're actually competing for. Number 2, your ARR. That's your annual reoccurring revenue. What's that estimate? You're not going to be accurate, you're not going to be perfect, but I want you to have an idea of this is our sales goal. If we execute on these leads, we should be able to convert this many sales and generate this much revenue. We're looking at annual reoccurring revenue because typically today, you're going to have some type of subscription model tied to your business. And that's always going to look better than just a one-time inflection of capital. You want to find a way to get long-term contracts with your customers and to be able to retain them. Number 3, it's going to be your CAC. That's your customer acquisition cost. Whenever you're scaling your business, whether you're getting your users up, whether you're just looking at your TAM and your market that you want to be able to address, you have to be able to spend money to make money. And a lot of times in a startup, most of your money is going to be spent in your CAC. It's not really going to be on your labor. It's not really going to be on your product development. It's going to be on your customer acquisition. So you want to know, what is that cost? One thing I recommend, if you're in an industry that is well known, who are the top folks in that industry? You know, what is the customer acquisition cost of a company like Uber or Airbnb? Figure that out, and you can use that for your rough estimates. You can look at what was it at various stages. Was it higher when they were younger, but then it got better over time, or the inverse? So you can look at that as well. But this allows companies to know for every dollar I'm making, how much am I spending? And then last, you want to think about churn. So as we talked about, if you're talking about getting subscriptions, you're going to have individuals who are going to cancel. That just is what it is. What is that churn rate? What is your average life cycle for your customer? So I know, great, you addressed your market, you signed a contract, you know how much it costs you to get them, but when are you going to lose them? With these 3 metrics down here, AR, CAC, and churn, they can now calculate and know if I give you this $1 million in capital, what is your burn rate going to look like? So how quickly will you burn through it? But also, how many users or customers should we be able to expect because of this $1 million? So really, if you do this properly, this will ultimately lead to your seed. And what'll help you get to that seed better are going to be your advisors over here. With your advisors, you're not giving them a lot of equity up front. You're not giving them a fee up front. You're going to give them about, let's call it 0.5 to 2.5% in equity so they can join your company and really be a part of your advisor board. They're going to be in a position where they can become investors later down the rounds, but early on, they're your advocates. They're selling for you, but they make it much easier for you to be able to get this seed because now they're speaking on your behalf because your team is much stronger because you have your CEO who can sell his behind off or her behind off. You have your CTO who's building amazing code, but then you also have a rock star team, and then you multiply that with advisors that have industry expertise and they have well-known status, and that'll help you get to that seed. I hope this helps.
Awesome, man. So a couple of quick questions. For a entrepreneur in Africa somewhere that's like, hey, I don't have a good understanding of this, and I would like to have sort of a mentor, someone to handhold me through this process. Is there any free resources out there that you suggest for them?
Absolutely. The first thing I always say is local is powerful. Of course, there's going to be great resources online, great groups you can be a part of, whether it's finding Facebook groups or WhatsApp groups that are tied to it. I have my own startup community as well. So if you ever want to get mine, you can always hit me up. But really, what I believe is in each of these markets, you're going to have a little bit of an ecosystem. Look what's there first. Do they have local meetups where you can get with like minds?
Nice.
Because it's not about you finding someone who's 10 steps ahead of you, it's about you finding someone who's one step ahead of you. And that will help you inch by inch get to where you want to be.
Nice. Awesome, man. And then in terms of like, let's say somebody that has already built an app, but they don't own the code currently, what would you suggest?
Whatever you can do to get ownership of that code,
Yeah.
especially if you really believe in what you're doing, you believe in your product. I don't believe that there's a cost or an expense, whether it's labor, your time and energy, or your resources, that override how important it is for you to get that code. So, for example, if you don't even understand code yourself, find someone, find an individual. If you don't have capital, maybe they become your partner now. You'll give them equity in that company.
Yeah.
Whatever you have to do, but the key is getting someone who can actually read and understand what's going on. There are some AI resources out there too that can help you out, but you want someone who can have an honest conversation with you. The best way to find them, whether it's going through a university system or any business, you want to find individuals that you already trust, who actually know what they're doing in the business, and have them introduce you to someone. Don't just go online and say, hey, I'm looking for someone to help me out. But whatever it costs you, it is important for you to understand your code in and out, or someone on your team to understand that and own it.
What would you suggest in terms of a percentage? Let's say you found a CTO or another person that's going to maybe even be your CEO. What would you suggest as far as like a good number to give so that you don't sell your whole company?
Yeah.
But also that you don't undersell or undervalue the responsibilities that that other person's taking on.
Absolutely. So I believe, for one, you need to know what percentage of equity is captured for your future team. Know that up front. Know what you want to give the future investors in your future team. So let's say let's say 20% of your company is going to the team that you're going to bring on, because you won't have the capital to pay them to work for you, but if they believe in what you're doing, they'll take equity. And now you have 80% that you can split between you and your co-founder. I'm a big fan of split it halfway. I'll take 40, you take 40, and we're in this together. But the way I would go about it, because they weren't there with you on day one, I would go about it by making them have to vest that over time. You don't want to give it to them right up front. So most of the time when you're hired on to a tech startup or any tech company, they're going to give you about a 4-year vesting period. That would take too long with this type of relationship. So what I've recommended is to do it in phases. The first phase, you say, okay, I'm going to give you this percentage of your equity when the MVP is created and ready to go. Then the next phase is I'm going to give you this percentage of your equity once we secure our funding. And then 1 year from the date that we secure our funding, you get the remaining balance of your equity. So ideally, this incentivizes them to move a little bit faster. So instead of 4 years, they can get all their equity within, let's say, 1.5 years.
Awesome. Last question or last bit of questions here. You talked about seed funding. Can you talk a little about pre-seed funding?
Yes. So pre-seed funding a lot of time happens because your seed funding is the funding you get before you get to your Series A, B, and C rounds. And typically this can be your friends and family round. This is the round of individuals who really believe in you. From what I've seen from pre-seed, a lot of these pre-seed rounds can also be institutions and groups as well, because what you're putting out there is strong. And sometimes they'll come in what's called a convertible note. So what they're doing is they're giving you this funding to kind of get your idea started, because your idea is a unicorn idea and you have a solid team behind you. You may not have your MVP ready, so we're going to go ahead and give you funding. But they may say, let's do it as a convertible note, which means that it's almost like a loan. I'm going to give you this capital today, but what will happen is on this date, it now converts to be equity. So let's say your next round, you're giving out shares for $100 a share. They're only having to pay $80 a share because they were there pre-seed and they got it early on.
Yeah. So for many of you who've heard of like preferred shares, that's kind of what he's talking about here. So your stuff doesn't get diluted when they go public. So your stuff is, or your shares remain constant and even more valuable actually.
Yeah.
But bro, thank you so much, man. If people wanted to get in touch with you, how can they either ping you on LinkedIn, Instagram? What's your handles?
Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm Sean the Speaker. You can find me there. I have my link in bio as well. So if you ever are looking for an advisor or consultant for your startup, feel free to reach me there. Or you can go to my website at valuecentric.net. And then that's actually value-centric.net. My apologies. So you can meet me there as well. And I'm on LinkedIn, Sean Ilenrey. I'm very active on LinkedIn and Instagram, so you'll see me in both places. But as I mentioned, I'm here to help any startups that need some help or any advice. This is the tip of the iceberg, so feel free to hit me up.
Awesome. Sean, well, thank you again, man. For those of you who didn't catch Sean's interview, please go watch that on our YouTube channel. If you have any additional questions for Sean or us in general, hit us up at africansintechnology@gmail.com. Again, it's africansintechnology@gmail.com. My name is Saul Levy. This is Africans in Tech, where we're building bridges and shaping futures in tech. All right, fam.